The rain poured down in torrents, the wind howling through the trees like a mournful cry. The night was dark and cold, and the storm seemed to have taken over the world, leaving the small town in a blanket of isolation. At the edge of the town, nestled in a quiet neighborhood, was a modest house where a new family had just settled in. The Johnsons had recently adopted a rescue dog named Luna, and though the storm outside raged, there was warmth and peace within the walls of their home. Luna was a mixed-breed dog, medium-sized with a sleek black coat and piercing amber eyes. When the Johnsons had first met her at the animal shelter, she had been shy, hesitant, and a little distant. But as soon as they locked eyes, something inside them clicked. They could see the intelligence in her gaze and knew she had been through more than her fair share of hardship. She had been abandoned by her previous owner, left to fend for herself in the streets. But the moment she found her way into the Johnsons' arms, she seemed to understand that her life had changed forever. The Johnsons, a young couple with 2 young children, welcomed Luna into their home with open arms. It didn't take long for Luna to adjust, and over time she became more and more comfortable. The family would take her on long walks through the neighborhood, and every evening, Luna would curl up on the couch beside them, content and safe. She had finally found the love and security she had always longed for. One evening, as the storm outside intensified, the family settled into the warmth of their living room. The flickering light from the fireplace cast a soft glow over the room, and the children were curled up in front of the TV, watching their favorite movie. Luna was lying at their feet, her head resting on her paws, her eyes occasionally flicking toward the window as the wind howled outside. As the movie played on, the wind picked up, and the sound of branches creaking under the pressure of the storm filled the air. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the backyard. Luna's ears perked up immediately, her body tense. She shot to her feet and ran toward the back door, barking frantically. The Johnsons exchanged a glance, their curiosity piqued by Luna's sudden reaction. "Luna, what's wrong?" the mother, Sarah, called out, her voice a mixture of concern and confusion. But Luna didn't respond. Instead, she continued to bark and pace by the door, her tail straight and her body rigid. Something was wrong. The family stood up and made their way to the door, but as Sarah reached for the handle, Luna was already there, her body pressing against the door as if to keep them from opening it. Sarah hesitated for a moment, unsure of what Luna was trying to tell her. But the dog's behavior was unmistakable. There was danger outside. The storm continued to rage as Sarah and her husband, Ben, slowly backed away from the door, trying to decide what to do next. Luna's barking grew louder, more urgent, and it was then that they heard something, a soft scratching noise like claws scraping against the wood. "What is that?" Ben asked, his voice filled with unease. Luna growled low in her throat, her hackles raised as she paced in front of the door. The scratching grew louder, more frantic, and then came the unmistakable sound of something, or someone, trying to break in. Without warning, Luna sprang into action. She ran toward the door, barking fiercely, her growls turning into a deep, menacing snarl. The family stood frozen, their hearts racing as they realized that someone, or something, was trying to enter their home. Ben rushed to the window, pulling the curtains back slightly to see what was happening outside. In the dim light of the storm, he saw a figure moving in the shadows, creeping toward the house. It was hard to make out the details, but there was no mistaking the threat in the figure's movements. It was a man dressed in dark clothing, his face obscured by the storm in the darkness. He was standing just outside the back door, his hand reaching for the handle. Sarah's heart skipped a beat as she realized what was happening. They were being targeted. Someone had come to their home with the intent to break in. In a flash, Luna lunged at the back door, her powerful body slamming against it with force. She barked furiously, her protective instincts kicking into high gear. She wasn't just a dog, she was a guardian, and she would do anything to protect her family. The intruder outside took a step back, startled by Luna's sudden ferocity, but he didn't retreat. Instead, he reached into his jacket and pulled out a crowbar. Ben's heart pounded in his chest. He knew that he needed to act quickly, but his mind raced, unsure of what to do. Before he could make a move, Luna was already on it. She pressed herself against the door, barking with such intensity that it was clear she wouldn't let the intruder get any closer. Her protective instinct was on overdrive, and there was no doubt in her mind that her family was in danger. Luna's barks turned into a ferocious growl as the man took another step forward, his crowbar raised. Sarah grabbed her phone and dialed 911, her hands shaking as she spoke to the operator. "Please help, someone is trying to break into our home. We need help now," she cried out, her voice filled with panic. But Luna wasn't waiting for help. In a swift, fluid motion, she leapt at the door, her body slamming into it with all her might. The force of the impact sent the man stumbling backward, his crowbar falling to the ground. Luna was relentless. She growled menacingly, her teeth bared as she advanced on the intruder, never letting him take another step forward. The man's eyes widened in surprise as he realized the dog wasn't going to back down. He hesitated for a moment, looking for an escape, but Luna wasn't giving him the chance. She darted forward, her sharp teeth snapping dangerously close to him. In a panic, the intruder turned and bolted, running into the storm, leaving behind his crowbar and any thoughts of breaking in. As the danger passed, Luna stood at the door, still growling softly, her body tense but her eyes scanning the yard for any signs of movement. Sarah and Ben rushed to her side, both of them in shock, but also in awe of the bravery and loyalty that Luna had shown. "Luna, you saved us," Ben said, his voice thick with emotion as he knelt down to her level, running his hands through her fur. Sarah, equally moved, wrapped her arms around Luna, holding her close. "You're our hero," she whispered, tears welling up in her eyes. The children, too, gathered around the dog, their faces filled with admiration and gratitude for the animal that had protected them. Luna, for all her strength and courage, simply sat down, her tail wagging gently as she looked up at her family with love and devotion. She had done what she was meant to do, she had kept them safe. Later that night, the police arrived and they investigated the scene. The man who had tried to break in was never found, and the Johnsons were left to wonder just how close they had come to a terrible situation. But they were also filled with gratitude for the dog they had rescued, who had in turn saved them when they needed it most. Luna had proven that even though she had once been abandoned, she was capable of great love, and she would always protect those who cared for her. The Johnsons' bond with Luna deepened that night. What had started as a rescue for a dog in need had transformed into a bond between a family and their protector, a bond built on trust, loyalty, and love. They knew that they had been given a second chance, both for Luna and for themselves, and they would never take that for granted. In the years that followed, Luna continued to be the heart of the Johnson family. Her courage, her loyalty, and her love never wavered, and she became more than just a pet, she became family. And the Johnsons, forever grateful for the dog who had saved their lives, knew that they had been given a gift that no one could ever take away, the protection of a dog who loved them fiercely and unconditionally. The old farmhouse stood silhouetted against the fiery hues of the setting sun. A gentle breeze rustled through the tall grasses surrounding the property, carrying the sweet scent of wildflowers. Inside, the Peterson family was settling into their new home. Sarah and Michael, along with their two young children Emily and Ben, had just moved from the bustling city to the quiet countryside, hoping for a simpler, more peaceful life. They had also recently adopted a dog from the local animal shelter, a beautiful German Shepherd mix named Shadow. Shadow was a bit of a mystery. She was found wandering the streets, thin and skittish, but with kind, intelligent eyes that seemed to hold a world of unspoken stories. The Petersons instantly fell in love with her gentle nature and quiet demeanor. She was initially timid, hesitant to trust, but with patience and love she slowly began to open up, revealing a loyal and affectionate companion. The first few weeks in the farmhouse were idyllic. Emily and Ben adored Shadow, showering her with attention and playing with her in the sprawling fields. Sarah and Michael appreciated her calm presence and the sense of security she brought to their isolated home. Shadow, in turn, seemed to thrive in the peaceful environment, enjoying the wide open spaces and the unconditional love she received. One crisp autumn evening, as the family gathered around the dinner table, a strange unease settled over the farmhouse. The wind howled outside, rattling the windows and creating an eerie symphony of creaks and groans. Shadow, who had been lying quietly under the table, suddenly stood up, her ears perked, her body tense. She let out a low growl, a sound that was unlike anything the Petersons had ever heard from her before. Michael, sensing Shadow's unease, went to the window and peered out into the darkness. He saw nothing, just the swaying trees and the inky blackness of the night. He reassured himself that it was just the wind playing tricks on their senses. But Shadow remained agitated, pacing back and forth, her growls intensifying. Sarah, concerned by Shadow's behavior, decided to take her outside, hoping to calm her down. As soon as they stepped out onto the porch, Shadow pulled away from Sarah and ran towards the barn, barking furiously. Sarah hesitated for a moment, then grabbed a flashlight and followed her. Inside the barn, the air was thick with the smell of hay and dust. Sarah scanned the darkness with her flashlight, trying to make sense of Shadow's frantic behavior. Suddenly, she heard a rustling sound coming from the back of the barn. She pointed the flashlight in that direction and saw two shadowy figures huddled together, their faces obscured by the darkness. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest. She realized that these were not just ordinary trespassers. They were acting suspiciously as if they were trying to steal something. She instinctively knew that she and her family were in danger. Without hesitation, Sarah turned and ran back to the house, leaving Shadow to guard the barn. She burst through the front door, her voice trembling as she told Michael what she had seen. Michael, realizing the gravity of the situation, grabbed his phone and called the police. While Michael was on the phone, Sarah gathered Emily and Ben, bringing them into the safest room in the house. She locked the door and instructed them to stay quiet and hidden. She knew that they had to remain calm and wait for the police to arrive. Back at the barn, Shadow was facing the two intruders, her fur bristling, her teeth bared. She stood her ground, a fierce protector of her new family. The intruders, startled by Shadow's sudden appearance and her aggressive stance, hesitated for a moment. They had not expected to encounter any resistance. One of the intruders, a tall, burly man, tried to scare Shadow away, shouting at her and waving his arms. But Shadow didn't flinch. She stood her ground, her eyes fixed on the intruders, her growls echoing through the barn. The other intruder, a smaller, more agile man, tried to sneak around Shadow, hoping to get away. But Shadow anticipated his move and lunged at him, knocking him off balance. The man stumbled and fell, dropping a crowbar that he had been carrying. Shadow seized the opportunity and grabbed the crowbar in her mouth, holding it tightly. She then backed away, keeping her eyes on the two intruders, preventing them from escaping. The intruders, realizing that they were no match for the determined dog, decided to give up. They knew that the police would arrive soon, and they didn't want to risk being caught. They slowly backed away, keeping their distance from Shadow, until they reached the barn door. Just as they were about to make their escape, the police arrived, sirens wailing, lights flashing. The intruders, seeing that their escape route was blocked, surrendered without a fight. They were taken into custody, and the Petersons were safe. The police officers praised Shadow for her bravery and quick thinking. They told the Petersons that Shadow had likely saved them from a dangerous situation. The intruders were known to be involved in a series of robberies in the area, and they had clearly targeted the Petersons' farmhouse. The Petersons were overwhelmed with gratitude for Shadow. They realized that she was not just a pet, but a true member of their family, a protector, a guardian angel in fur. They showered her with love and affection, thanking her for her courage and loyalty. Shadow, in return, seemed to understand the significance of her actions. She was calmer, more confident, as if she knew that she had earned her place in the family. She had transformed from a timid rescue dog into a brave and loyal protector. The incident at the barn solidified the bond between Shadow and the Petersons. They had faced danger together and they had come out stronger. They knew that they could always rely on Shadow, and she knew that she had finally found a home, a family that loved and cherished her unconditionally. Life at the farmhouse returned to normal, but the memory of Shadow's bravery remained. She continued to be a loving companion, playing with Emily and Ben, cuddling with Sarah and Michael, and guarding the farmhouse with unwavering devotion. The story of Shadow, the rescue dog who saved her family, spread throughout the community. She became a local hero, a symbol of courage and loyalty. People admired her bravery and her unwavering devotion to her family. Shadow's story also served as a reminder of the importance of adopting animals from shelters. She had been abandoned, unwanted, but she had found a loving home and had repaid that love with unwavering loyalty and courage. She proved that rescue dogs are not just second-hand pets, but loving, intelligent creatures capable of extraordinary things. Years passed, and Shadow remained a beloved member of the Peterson family. She grew old gracefully, her fur turning gray, her gait slowing down. But her spirit remained strong, her eyes still sparkling with intelligence and love. One peaceful evening, as the sun set over the farmhouse, Shadow passed away peacefully in her sleep, surrounded by her loving family. The Petersons mourned her loss deeply, but they were also filled with gratitude for the years of love and companionship she had given them. They knew that Shadow's spirit would live on, a reminder of the power of love, loyalty, and the extraordinary bond between humans and their animal companions. Her story continued to be told, inspiring others to adopt rescue animals and to cherish the unconditional love they offer. Shadow, the rescue dog who saved her family, left behind a legacy of love, courage, and unwavering devotion.